Welcome everyone to our weekly shir on the Parashat with the Perush of the wonderful and mystical Zera Shimshon. Zechutat Agen Aleinu. This shir is dedicated to his neshama, the Ilui Nishmat, Rav Shimshon Chaim ben Nachman Michael. May his zechut be a ministering, as we say, melitz yosher for all of us, so that we should all see Yeshuot v'nehamot be'ezrat Hashem. May the ta'anit of Asara B'Tevet tomorrow in his zechut turn into a holiday, a Yom Tov for all of us. Shir is dedicated for the Refuah Shelema of Kol Cholei Am Yisrael. And also for all those singles, be'ezrat Hashem, in the zechut of the Zera Shimshon should find their zivug, b'karov mizmano. And those that need children, Hashem should give them the blessing of having Zera Qayama Bezrat Hashem B'Charov. So, Parashat Vayechi, right after the climax of Parashat Vayigash with the brothers of Yosef, Yaakov Avinu gathers all the brothers together, all of his sons together, to give them their mission in life and to ask them things if he needs to ask them. Last will and testament. Yaakov Avinu asks Yosef HaTzadik, one of his younger sons, to make him a promise. And we're going to talk about that promise a little bit, and we're going to see the Zera Shimshon brings out a very deep thought in this parasha. The Midrash Rabbah says, tonight's Zera Shimshon is Drush Zayin, the seventh ma'amar of the Zera Shimshon. Midrash Rabbah, the Midrash says, Al na tikbereni b'Mitzrayim. Yaakov Avinu requests from his son, not to bury him in Mitzrayim. He did not want to be buried in Mitzrayim. Now listen to this Midrash. Very cryptic Midrash. Bishvilcha yarati leMitzrayim. Yaakov Avinu says to his son Yosef, because of you, for you I came down to Mitzrayim. Bishvilcha amarti amuta ha'pa'am. And for you, it was on your account that I said, now I can die. Because Yaakov Avinu, as soon as he saw Yosef, he said, now I can die peacefully. Now that I've seen your face. Right? Adkan leshono. This is the lashon, this is the language of the Midrash. The Zera Shimshon says, Qasheh, it's difficult to understand, really. Ma inyan elu adevarim lachriach. How are these points that he's saying convincing Yosef HaTzadik not to bury him in Mitzrayim? He doesn't want him to be buried. Yaakov Avinu doesn't want to be buried in Mitzrayim. So the Midrash says, you know how he convinced his son? By telling him, listen, it was because of you that I came here. I came down here for you. And it was because of you that I said, now I can die peacefully. What does it have to do with not wanting to be buried in Mitzrayim? How does the Midrash come up with that? What's the connection here? And specifically, why the need for these two reasons? One, Yaakov Avinu says, I came down here for you, so please don't bury him in Mitzrayim. And number two reason, he says, and it was because of you that I said I could finally die in peace. Why the two reasons? And why is the reason at all a reason? Does that make sense? Why is the reason a reason? Reason. Everyone following so far? Not too difficult. Says, let's introduce the idea first with Rashi. Well, the commentary Rashi says, when Yaakov Avinu says, Vayikra livno leYosef, he called to his son, to Yosef, to come to him. Why was it that Yaakov Avinu chose to call on Yosef for this task of not burying him in Mitzrayim? Why was Yosef trusted with this task and not the other brothers? By the way, the Zera Shimshon has a full ma'amar just on this promise and why Yosef was chosen, not the other brothers, not Yehuda and Reuven, even though Reuven was the firstborn. Yehuda was also kingship, the main kingship really. But we're not going to get into that. But Rashi over here says The reason why Vayigra Livlona Yosef, the reason why he called upon his son Yosef was because Shahaya Sipek Biyado La'asot, because Yosef was capable in doing this task. Why? Because he was the king of Egypt, and he was capable of making sure to talk to the right people to be able to bury Yaakov Avinu outside of Egypt. Why? Quite simply because if it wasn't for that, they wouldn't have let him leave Mitzrayim. They would not have let Yaakov Avinu's body leave Mitzrayim. Can you shut off the air, please? Sorry. Good question. I think we covered this before, but we'll just answer quickly. The reason why they didn't want Yaakov's body to be buried, which will be mentioned in a mystical way in this Ma'amar also, but on the surface was because Paro knew that all the blessings came to Mitzrayim as soon as Yaakov Avinu came. So for him, it was a tactical measure. Like, why would I want this holy person's body to leave Egypt? If he leaves, all the brachot will leave. All the blessings that ever came to Egypt are going to be gone. Right? So he didn't want that to happen. So he would not have wanted Yaakov's body to be buried outside of Egypt. Od katav ha-Siftei Kohen. Furthermore, the Siftei Kohen, the Sefer Siftei Kohen writes, Shemin hadin haya sheyelech Yosef le'eretz Kena'an la'aviv. Really, it should have been, remember, Yaakov Avinu saying to Yosef, I came for you. Leave it a little bit open because it locks on the other side. If someone comes, please. Just a tad bit. No. Just, just kind of, there we go. Yeah. Yaakov Avinu, the Midrash says, Yaakov Avinu says to Yosef, I came down here for you. So the Siftei Kohen says, what was Yaakov Avinu really saying to Yosef? Yaakov Avinu was saying to Yosef, really, you should have come to Canaan. And really, that should have been it, really. Should the son go see the father or be with the father, or should the father come to the son? 22 years you've been lost. Okay, come back home. That's not kavod, in a sense. No, we're not saying that that's what we're saying, but let's say, for argument's sake, it's not kavod. Okay. Espérate.
But Yosef is a king here.
All right, so we're gonna say that. Oh, hold your horses, donkeys, whatever it is you Middle Easterners ride. I don't know what it is you guys use, but whatever it is that you ride, usually hold them. Someone's gonna be like, I walk my dog, really. So he says, really, Yosef should have traveled to Canaan, to his father. It shouldn't have been that Yaakov Avinu comes to Yosef in Mitzrayim. I'm surprised nobody said that, by the way. But the fact that Yosef was a king, because he was a king, Yosef was not able to leave his charge as the king in Egypt. And this is the meaning of the verse. Samani Elokim le'adon lechol Mitzrayim reda elai. That's why Yosef HaTzadik sends a message to Yaakov Avinu and says, Hashem has made me a king on all of Mitzrayim, so reda elai, so you come down to me. So Yosef HaTzadik was really giving a reason, like, Father, please you come to me because I've given a charge by Hashem to be a king in Mitzrayim. I can't leave this charge. That's my responsibility. So please you come down to me. Kelomar, as if to say, Davna bishvil shesamani. Specifically because I've become the king in Egypt, you should come down to me. Ani omer lecha reda, that I'm saying to you to come down to me. Halav hachi, had it not been so, if I had not been the king of Egypt, I would have for sure come to you. There's no doubt that Yosef would have gone to Canaan, Eretz Israel, to his father. The only reason he was saying that his father should come down to him was because he had such a special and important responsibility. Right? Now, third introduction. Od katav hazera. Right. Od katav hazera berach. The Zera Berach writes, Chelek Bet, in the second chapter, the Parashat of our day, Vayechi, Parashat our week. Beshem HaZohar, quoting the Zohar. This is good for all you Kabbalists here studying Kabbalah on Tuesday nights. Shame. You have no idea how many people have asked me where my classes are on Tuesday nights. I'd like to mention again that it's a joke. I do not have a Kabbalah class on Tuesday nights.
Why you should?
That's the joke though.
Maybe you should. But why you should?
Maybe someday I'll have a Kabbalah class, but I'll never have a Kabbalah class. It's two different things. Shem haya Yaakov nichbar b'Mitzrayim. Listen to this Zohar. This is the main meat and potatoes of the shiur here. Shem haya Yaakov nichbar b'Mitzrayim. If Yaakov Avinu was buried in Mitzrayim, this is crazy. Lo hitchila shibud leolam. The exile of Egypt would never start. If Yaakov Avinu was buried in Egypt, there would be no exile of Egypt. Wow. Why? Because of his zechut. Because of the zechut, the merit of Yaakov Avinu being in that land, it would be like his children are going to become slaves where he's buried. So there would never be, it couldn't start. It would not start. The exile in Egypt because of Yaakov Avinu. So now understand why Yaakov Avinu is saying he needs to go to Eretz Yisrael. He doesn't want to be buried in Mitzrayim, according to the Zohar. And it's also come down in the commentaries. Oh my gosh, God, listen guys. Please, everyone listen to this very carefully. The Mefarshim say, because of Yosef guarding himself from the immoral behaviors with Potiphar's wife, when he guarded himself and he became, according to Kabbalah, the thing of Hayesod, right? He became the most strongest part of the what you may call it,
Yosef was Prinat Yesod.
Right, Yesod in
It was Prinat Yesod.
in the cycle of what's the word I'm looking for?
Even in the Sfirot.
In the Sfirot, right? Yosef is the Yesod, right? How did he become Yesod? Because he guarded himself in the most unbelievable conditions, right? We spoke about this 2 weeks ago, so I'm not going to get into it, but just imagine Yosef being lost, having no hope, being enticed by the most beautiful woman in the world, according to the Gemara, ever, right? And he held himself. Because of that, listen to what this says. Nigderu kol ha'anashim. All of the Jewish men in Egypt took their strength from that shefa that Yosef HaTzadik left through guarding himself, and they were able to do the same. What do we say? We say that Bnei Israel were zocheh. They were nig'alin, they were zocheh. They merited to be freed from slavery from Egypt. One of the zechuyot that they had was what? They didn't go with the Egyptian women. Right? We've heard this. That the men did not stoop down to the levels of immorality with the women of Egypt. They kept their britot. They kept their brit kodesh. That's why HaKadosh Baruch Hu, when took them out, he said, there is no pagam here. Everybody that I brought out, and everyone that came in is Bnei Israel. Everyone that came out is Bnei Israel. There was no pagam. How did that happen? It says when the zechut of Yosef, when Yosef did such a hard task of holding himself and guarding himself, he opened that, so to speak. He was mashpia on the generation after him to be able to do the same thing. Ma'aseh avot siman lebanim. When he did that, he brought down a strength for all of Am Yisrael to be able to do the same thing. That's how it became Midat HaYesod, right? So now, Bezehu Beor HaMidrash. Now, through this, he says, this is the understanding on how we can explain this Midrash. So far, everybody following? Good. Amar Yaakov. Yaakov Avinu said as follows. Min hara'ui haya shetavo ata acharai le'eretz Yisrael. Yaakov Avinu was telling Yosef HaTzadik, really? You should have come to me in Eretz Yisrael. You should have tried, not for me to come to Eretz Mitzrayim. It would have been for me, you should have come to me in Eretz Yisrael. Why should I come to you? Really, that's the way it should have been. Not that I should follow you and come to Egypt. Really, technically, that's how it should have been. Right? However, because you had become a king, I was made, so to speak, I had to come instead to you to Egypt. Therefore, I am telling you, because I was forced to, so to speak, come to Egypt to you, I am telling you, because you are a king, and you have the ability, you have the resources, you have the power. Do not bury me in Mitzrayim. Why? That's why now the second point he says, because I came here for you. I came down to Egypt for you. What does that mean? Only because you are a king, therefore, it was fitting that you finally make use of that power and move me out. Take me out. What does that mean? Yaakov Avinu was saying, because I knew you have the power to do what I need you to do at the end, that's why I came down to you. Because you're a king. Because I knew when I request that you take me out, you will take me out. Meaning Yaakov Avinu was saying, if I knew that you're not going to be able to take me out, I would have never came to Mitzrayim. Why? Because I need to get out of Egypt. Now, the question is why? Why did he want to get out of Egypt? Orale? Okay, wait. You're hungry? What? Veim Tomar. Now you say, Shata rotze legavarani b'Mitzrayim. Yaakov Avinu was saying, now you're going to tell me, Yosef, my son, you'd rather bury me in Egypt. You'd rather Yaakov Avinu stay in Egypt. Kedei shelo yatchil hagalut. Because you don't want this galut to start. You don't want to have the galut. Why have the galut of Mitzrayim? Why have the exile of Egypt? Halo adarabba. But I'm telling you on the contrary. I'm telling you the exact opposite. Listen to how the Zera Shimshon translates the pasuk now. Ani amarti, that's why I said to you, amuta hapam kesharaiti panecha. I can die now that I've seen your face. What was Yaakov telling Yosef that, I've seen your face, I could die now. What was he saying? Kelomar kesharaiti bezohar panecha shelo chatata be'erva. When I saw in your face that you never sinned in immorality, you never gave up your kedusha. When I saw your face and I saw, Yosef is a Sadiq like no other. He is as clean as he left my home 20-something years ago. When I saw that, and I realized that all of my children are going to be saved from this same ta'ava, from this same pitfall of erva, of immorality. In your zechut, they're going to be saved. My children are going to be saved in Egypt. Amarti amuta apam. I said, I can die right now. Yaakov Avinu said, Kedei sheyatchil hagalut miyad. Because he wanted the exile to start now. Yosef was saying the opposite of, Yaakov was saying the opposite of Yosef HaTzadik. He said, when I saw that in your zechut, my children are going to be able to withstand all of the filth of Egypt, Yaakov Avinu said he'd rather the exile start right now. Right now. He wanted to die because he knew that unless he dies, the exile is not going to start. He said he wants the exile to start now. Sharetam hagalut hu, because the reason for the exile was mipnei shei efshar lizchot benahalat Eretz Yisrael. Jews could not really merit position of the land of Eretz Yisrael im lo al yedei yisurin, without hardship. They had to go through this kivshana esh. Bnei Israel had to go through this cleansing process of slavery in Egypt. They needed to go through this furnace. Like you put gold that is mixed up with all kinds of different metals and filth. You melt it in a furnace, right? A kivshana esh, so that you could separate all the dirt and you could come out with pure gold. Bnei Israel went into Egypt for cleansing. HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, before they can accept the Torah, they need to be cleansed. They need the galut. So we went into Egypt. And Yaakov Avinu said, now that I've seen what my son has brought into Egypt, this koach of yesod, now my children will be able to survive. Why? Because Yaakov Avinu saw that the only downfall of Bnei Israel is what? With the erva. The only downfall of Bnei Israel is through immorality. That's the only downfall. Look at us today. Look at Bnei Israel today. Go and search on Google what the rates of what? Intermarriages. It's incredibly high, unfortunately. It's crazy. What is that from? It's all through immorality. It's all because of lust and ta'ava. You talk to people, like it's sad the things you hear.
What's ta'ava mean?
Desire, lust, for physical pleasure. Forgetting about future and only sticking to now. And it's destroying Am Yisrael. Yaakov Avinu understood the survival of Am Yisrael is through guarding themselves.
Is that also parents' fault too? You have to know. Parenting?
100%. But but at the end of the day, it's the same issue still. When parents don't bring up their children in the correct manner in through Judaism, for them to understand the value of a person being able to have morals and values, that's what happens. The kid grows up to feel like, I see what I like, I take what I like. What's wrong with it? My parents ate non-kosher all the time. It happens all the time. Parents celebrate Christmas because it's nice. They have a Hanukkah bush. It's nice, it's sweet, right? And then 15 years, 20 years down the line, why does he want to marry a non-Jew? I don't understand. Why? I don't understand. You know what? You know what your kids don't understand? Is why not? It's a beautiful custom. Why not having a Hanukkah tree? What was wrong with the Hanukkah tree? If it's so nice, what's wrong with it? I grew up in a family that was, at its core was always Judaism. Right? We might have not been in the beginning, like halachot and that, but chas v'shalom, breaking Shabbat, kashrut, chalila v'chalila. Right? And I remember as I was growing up, I had friends that had moved here with their parents much earlier than I, and their parents used to make fun of me. Their parents used to make fun of me for being too religious, quote unquote. Right? Oh, you don't eat here? You don't eat there? You don't do this? Come on, kasher. Those stupid jokes that I used to hear all the time. I put my stamp on it. Here, it's kasher. Hey, it's kasher. Nah, all of this is about money. Right? It's all about money. It's all about this.
Was it because of your hair?
20 years later,
What happened after that?
unfortunately, sadly, some of those parents, it's not fun. It's not a funny thing at all. It breaks the heart when you see those parents coming to you 20 years later. Can you talk to her, please? Can you have a little talk with her, not to go out with this guy anymore? You don't know how many times the person wants to turn around and go, really? I thought I was the stupid nerd. I thought I was the one who was like, not cool enough. Now, because she's going out with a non-Jew, all of a sudden it's important. But because we don't understand, and I'm not blaming them outright, it's because we don't understand. We think, what's the big deal? What's the big deal? That's what we think. What's the big deal? Everybody's human, everybody's good. Yes, true. Anyone going to argue that? Not at all. Everyone's great. All cultures are great. But everybody has their own culture. If you want your kids to stay in their culture, you need to teach them the importance of that culture, sticking to that culture.
You still help those people?
I was always people always ask me, Rabbi, is it okay to celebrate Thanksgiving? Halachically, mamash, a halacha question, right? Is there anything wrong with celebrating Thanksgiving? What's Thanksgiving? You're just giving thanks to Hashem. That's what Thanksgiving is. What's wrong with it? You sit around the table and you give thanks. Something wrong with it? Technically, no. You're giving thanks. Why not? Right? My question to those people is, simple. Why? Do you give thanks every Shabbat?
Yes. Every day.
Do you sit around the table with your family every Shabbat? Do you go out of your way for Pesach, Sukkot, and Shavuot, the holidays that we actually do have? If you do all of those to the T, al pi halacha, no skipping around, then enjoy Thanksgiving. And I'm not giving a stamp of my approval for Thanksgiving still. I'm just saying, rhetorically. But if you're not doing all of those, why are you adding a holiday if you're not really keeping your own holidays? Why take something that's not yours if you're not even keeping your own? Be proud of the things you have. Every Shabbat we have an opportunity to sit around with family. Friday night, Shabbat lunch, sit around with your family, give thanks as much as you want. Make kiddush, make havdalah, do those things. But when it comes to turkey, which turkey do you buy? How big should it be? What kind of stuffing do you use? It becomes like a minhag avot. No, you have to put cranberry sauce. You have to put this kind of sauce. It's like, you're not yotzeh, turkey, if you don't have a kazayit of the... It's funny, but, it's almost become like that. So anyway, going back to what we were saying. This is what Yaakov Avinu was afraid of. Yaakov Avinu was saying, if I know my children are going to stay together and the erva is not going to entice them to go to the other side, then I know these kids are going to be able to withstand the exile no matter when it starts. So Yaakov Avinu was saying, it could start now. I'm okay with it starting right now. So he was telling to Yosef, see, you might want the body of your father to be in Mitzrayim, so that exile doesn't start. But you're wrong. It has to start. Because Bnei Israel have to accept the Torah. And without them going through the exile, they're not going to be able to receive the Torah. So in fact, not only I want the exile to start, I would have rather start as soon as I met you. So that it should be over with. And my children should accept the Torah. It says, Inami shelo hayu lechon leqabbel haTorah ad sheizdakechu bechura barzel. The Jewish people could not accept the Torah until they had been in that furnace. Kanoda, as it's well known. Yaakov haya rotzeh lemaher zeman kabbalat haTorah v'nachalat eretz Yisrael. Yaakov Avinu, he wanted to hasten the time of receiving the Torah and going to Eretz Yisrael. And because of that, he wanted the galut to start earlier. It's understandable, he says. If Yosef HaTzadik had not guarded himself from immoral behavior, yes, it would have been best if the galut never start. Because if the galut would start, the Jews would not be able to withstand it. Because Bnei Israel would have become impure in Mitzrayim. And they would have been lost completely through intermarriage and arayot. Gone. The Egyptians at that time were steeped deep in immorality. They say when the brothers went to Egypt to look for Yosef HaTzadik, you know where they looked? In the worst parts of Egypt. Because they knew how beautiful he was, and they said, if he was sold to Egypt, He's definitely in some... Exactly. In some way deep in the harlot house or something like that. That's really, because that's what Egypt was. That's what Egypt was. It was the worst of the worst. All kinds of immorality. And then HaKadosh Baruch Hu, because of that, could not free Bnei Israel from Egypt. But because Bnei Israel had the zechut of having that, guarding themselves from the erva, from immorality, and they were already worthy of receiving the divine presence, as it says, Shesham Arlu Shevatim Shifteka. When Bnei Israel went up, they ascended, it says, Hashem gave them two letters, Shifteka, Yud and Hey. Hashem added the Yud and Hey to Bnei Israel. Why? Because He said, I'm adding my letters of my name to them because they have kept themselves holy. Velachen Amar. Therefore, Yaakov Avinu says to Yosef HaTzadik, Bishvilcha amuta ha'pa'am. On your account, I said I can die now. Why did he say, on your account, I said I could die now? Now we understand. Because Yosef HaTzadik said, now that I see your face and how kadosh you have kept yourself, now I see that I don't even want to wait another minute. I want the exile to start now. And I knew that the exile is not going to start until Yaakov Avinu, the father of Am Yisrael, dies. And he was ready to die then and there. Now we understand why the Midrash has those two reasons. One was, he said, I came down here for you. He was saying, I came down here for you. Why? Really, because Yosef should have come down to Canaan. Yosef was supposed to go there. But he said, because you're a king over there, I came down to you. And when I saw you, I said, Amuta Apam. Why? Because I said, now the exile can start and my children can really, really start right now. And after the 400 years, they would go free. Why wait? Why take any longer? So that's why for Yaakov Avinu it was so important to explain to Yosef HaTzadik, to make him swear to take him out of Egypt. Because he knew Yosef had ideas in his mind of not taking his father out. Why? Because Yosef HaTzadik had the idea of why should the exile start? As long as his father's here, the exile won't start. Yaakov said, you're wrong. The exile can start and it should start. Why? Because of what you've done, you've made it so that your children can survive. And they can thrive. That was all in the zechut of Yosef HaTzadik. We don't understand, gentlemen. We don't understand how much koach a Jew has. And how much responsibility for Kedusha is given to every single Jew. And we have the power, Yosef HaTzadik. We have the willpower, we have the strength to stay kadosh. And we have to tell that to other Jews, men and women. The greatest challenge of our generation has become the challenge of erva, challenge of immorality. That's what the world has become. Everything goes. Everything goes. There's no rules, you can't judge anybody by anything anymore. Everybody just do whatever you want. Why has it become like that? Because we're in the era of Moshiach. We're literally like we were in Mitzrayim. We're mimicking the exact same thing. The Geula is coming. And the same challenge we had in Mitzrayim is the same challenge we have now. We have to pass the same exact test. The same challenge we had then. We passed that test. Because Bezrat Hashem, Moshiach Tzidkenu could come this minute. HaKadosh Baruch Hu He's going to want to see who's on this side of the line, who's on that side of the line. How does He decide? He decides by knowing who's Jewish, who's not, who's kept themselves kadosh. The Kedushat Am Yisrael and the Kedusha of Am Yisrael, who hasn't? That is the greatest challenge it's everywhere. Do you know anywhere in the world that this is not the challenge? Name it. Where is it in the world today that you would say that immorality is not the biggest challenge? Where? Name it. You can't find any. The most guarded countries in the world today are the worst. Because that's the challenge today. And we are on the forefront. Every single time a Yid, a Jew, whether a girl or a boy, decides, no, I'm not going to give in to my ta'avot. I'm not going to give in to my desires. My bodily, my physical desires of immorality. Every single time a person does that, you are ensuring the future of Am Yisrael, the future of your children, the future of the Ge'ulah. Because this is the task at hand right now. I don't see anything else being a bigger problem. Physically, I don't see anything else being the bigger problem. It's like a forefront, and a lot of people are losing in it. And that's what the Zera Shimshon was saying. That Yaakov Avinu said to Yosef HaTzadik, because of your zechut, my children have the power. So we have that power of Yesod. Every person has the power of Yesod. We just have to bear with it and break it and go through. We should not give in. And Bezrat Hashem, in that zechut, we are zocheh to sing Moshiach Tzidkenu b'mehera v'yamenu. Amen. Baruch Adonai le'olam. Amen ve'amen.